Hello, this is Cynthia Mazzaferro with Powerful Beyond Measure. And once again, I'm bringing a wonderful author and friend, John David Mann. How are you, John?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Great. Well, I am so excited to be talking with you today. And if you're interested in food and the culinary experience, you're going to really be amazed at our conversation today. Let me tell you a little bit about John. He is multi-talented and he can tell us best about himself. He's a celloist and he is also an award-winning author of many, many books, including the coveted Nautilus Award with his Deadly Misunderstanding. And so, John, what would you like to talk to us about?
Well, I'll talk to you about whatever you want to talk about, but in particular, I have a book that just came out, which,
Right.
because it's the book that just came out, I'm very excited about it. I'm also excited about it because it's different than anything I've ever done before, and it's very personal, and it also involves food. And also, did I mention food?
Yes,
It
you
also
did.
involves, there's a lot of cooking in the book, in the story, and so it's a lot of fun on a lot of different levels.
So let's kind of entice people into this wonderful, savory conversation. So your other co-author is Charles Carroll, and he is an Olympic culinary gold medalist. Is that right?
Yes.
So why don't you just briefly tell us how you both came together to create this beautiful book, The Recipe? And do you have a copy you can quickly hold up to kind of
Sure.
show everyone where we're wetting our
Sure.
whistles for?
Audio visual aid. So this is the book,
Yes.
and I'll speak a little more later about this picture in the cover because there's a story behind this painting, this illustration. But the first of all, you mentioned culinary Olympics, and people are probably going, "Huh? What is that?" So
Right.
there is a culinary Olympics. It's
Never heard of it.
every 4 years, just like the Athletic Olympics. It's been going on for about 100 years. Only it's every 4 years in Germany, always in Germany. And the best chefs from around the world compete. They work out, they practice and prepare for hours a day, not paid. They travel all over the world competing in smaller competitions. They pour hundreds of hours and just fiendishly difficult schedules into it. It's exactly like all the stories you've ever heard of, young skaters or skiers or runners or gymnasts or whatever, just like that for chefs. And so my co-author, Chef Charles, has been on 8 Olympic teams. He's won a bunch of, I don't even know the exact number of gold medals. He won his first gold medal at the age of 24. That was his first.
Wow.
And he's an amazing guy. I didn't, 10 years ago, I didn't know there was such a thing as an Olympics for chefs, and I didn't know him. So here's what happened, because you asked how we got to know each other. I have a book called The Go-Giver, another audio-visual aid. So The Go-Giver is the book that I'm best known for. And this came out exactly 10 years ago.
Wow.
And it became kind of a bestseller. It's sort of aimed as a business book, but people used it in all walks of life. It's a little business parable about the idea that if you shift your focus from yourself to other people, it's not only a nice and noble, good way to behave sort of morally, it's also practical. It's also pragmatic. It also is a way to create success for yourself. Because when you look out for other people, they look out for you. So that book had just come out, and I got this email from a guy I'd never heard of who said, I run a country club. I run food for one of the busiest country clubs in the nation, in Houston, Texas, River Oaks Country Club. I'm a chef. I'm an Olympic chef. I've got a staff of 70 people, and I'm using your book. I love your book.
That's
I'm using
great.
it in the country club. Yeah, and I thought that's very cool. He's using this book with his staff. So he asked me out to give a talk, and I went out to Houston and gave a talk there about the book. And while I was there, he said, I've got this idea for a story. I think we should write it together. Now, Cindy, I've heard these words before a lot of times. And if I had a nickel for every time, right? But he told me his idea for his story in just a few sentences, and I was captivated. I fell in love with this kid. The story is about a 14-year-old boy named Owen who's lost his dad. His dad has just unexpectedly died of a heart attack. And the boy is bereft, he's in grief, he's angry at the world, he's confused, his life is falling apart. He's getting in fights at school, he's on the verge of being kicked out. It's bad. And he happens to cross paths with this crusty old diner chef, this chef with an unreadable expression, this guy that he doesn't, it's kind of like Karate Kid meets Master Chef.
I love that.
He goes to work. And so, Charles told me this setup for the story. And I was like, oh man, we've got to do that. I've got to do that book. And it took us 8 years to get to the point where our schedules matched. He was traveling all over the world. He was president of the World Chefs Association. He put 250,000 miles of flights in over the last couple of years. I wrote 24 books between The Go-Giver and now. So we were insanely busy. I was writing more books in the Go-Giver series. I wrote a series of books with a former Navy SEAL sniper. A whole bunch of things going on. But we didn't want this dream to die. We really wanted to get the story. I wanted to find out how the story comes out. So we finally wrote the book. We about 2 years ago, we finally got the thing written. And then it was a journey to get to press. And it just came out this fall. So that's the story of The Recipe, the sad young boy and the crusty old chef and what happens.
And I absolutely love your subtitle. And by the way, that's a fabulous, miraculous union of two people and how you came together and needed to create and manifest and artistically design this book, which is it's really amazing. But I love your subtitle. It's Loss, Love, and the Ingredients of Greatness. And anybody that knows me, I'm always talking about finding your greatness, seeing your greatness. And we all have to go through our struggles and loss and frustrations and tribulations, and it's really amazing. And I love that subtitle. Do you want to talk a little bit more about those ingredients of greatness and how we actually cultivate that?
Sure. Well, it's great you read the whole subtitle, and that's a story unto itself, because when writing a book, for me anyhow, and I expect it's true for most, if not all writers, writing a book is a journey and it's a process of discovery. I didn't know what would be in this book when I started writing. And I knew the boy had lost his dad, but I didn't know the chef very well. I didn't know where the story was going to end up. There was a lot we didn't know. And we didn't start with that subtitle, I will tell you. We didn't start with that title either. It was only gradually that I realized that we knew it was a book about the ingredients of greatness, because that's what Chef Charles talks about in his talks. And that's what I've always been a student of, the ingredients of greatness, the elements of greatness, the recipe for greatness. And there are 7 principles in the book, which the chef gives the boy one by one as his rules of the kitchen. And it takes, almost the whole book for those rules to unroll one by one. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that they're not just rules for cooking. They're not just rules for the kitchen. They're also really rules for living. And they're rules for greatness. They're in the ingredients of greatness. But the full subtitle is A Story of Loss, Love, and the Ingredients of Greatness.
Right.
And that's really the journey that the boy takes, because it starts with loss. And the business of love, I don't mean romantic love. That's not really a part of the book. It's the love of a mentor for his, charge, his ward student, the person he's mentoring. The love of a father for his son and vice versa, of a mother for her son and vice versa. The love of the chef and his old friend. There's love on a variety of levels, as well as the love of what you're doing. We've all heard this expression, do what you love and the money will follow. Mm-hmm. That isn't always true.
That's true too.
It's do what you love and serve it to people who want it.
That's
And the money will follow.
well, and there's some other quotes that I love too, and one of them is everything you cook reveals everything you are. And I love the blend of the cooking tools and the what a chef would use and how that correlates into our life. So that's one. Another one is pay attention to the little things, adding the ingredients and the seasoning and how that all embellishes our desire and how we appreciate what we're doing in life.
Yeah. It's so true. Pay attention to the little things, he says. The big things will tend to take care of themselves. And that you mentioned that's that rule. It's not a rule exactly, but the thing that the chef says, everything you cook reveals everything you are. And that's true, I think, in business. I think, how often have you gone into a place of business and just based on how the person at the counter greeted you or served you or didn't or whatever, it reveals everything you want to know about that business, or how you're greeted on the telephone, or even, it isn't just about business. It's about sales. It's about business. It's about relationships. It's about family. The little ways that you treat another person, that you present yourself, that you take care of your surroundings, have an enormous impact. They carry an enormous message. And that's something, food shows have become really popular on television.
It certainly have.
There's the Top Chef, and there's Master Chef, and there's Chopped, and there's the Bobby Flay, Beat Bobby. And what's always fascinating to me is in these shows, because my wife and I watch them like crazy. We love to cook. So all the cooking in this book, I tested in my kitchen as I was writing it. So as the boy's learning how to unwrap onions and how to peel and all these things he's learning, I was doing all those as I was writing, ran back and forth from my kitchen to my desk. But what fascinates me in these shows, and I think what fascinates a lot of people, is not just the food, but you watch the attitude of these contestants, not especially when they win, but when they lose. Like how they respond to that, when they make a mistake or when they're judged harshly, how they respond to that, when they get eliminated or when they approach them, and the way character is revealed is so fascinating. That's really what you're talking about in the book. How everything you cook reveals your character, reveals your mood, reveals your state of mind, and that's something that the chef really leads the boy through in the process of the story.
And in that competition, they're under the hot fire. There's time constraints. You're limited in your ingredients. You have to come up and create this compilation in whatever order and how you want to prepare it, which is going to be different than your opposition, if you will. But isn't that really kind of like what life is? And that's what's wonderful about this book, is it's so symbolic and parallel in the sense that you can see that you create your own pressure sometimes, and how you can have a stellar masterpiece or a flop, but it doesn't mean that defines who we are. That we need to learn from it, take those challenges and step into them, and to see your greatness and to create that which you're going to savor and share with the world.
Yes. My favorite moments, or some of my favorite moments in the book, and there are a few of them, where Owen cooks a flop, when he has a disaster. There are a couple of disasters in the kitchen, and I loved writing them. I mean, I loved writing the whole thing. Every scene of it was just a joy to put together. But I've heard people who are cooks say, those TV shows are so unrealistic because you got half an hour, you got 15 minutes, and the timer's on, the pressure's on, and real life isn't like that. Yeah, real life actually is like that. It may be an exaggeration, but life is like, it's never perfect. You're under the gun. You're under pressure. You have, I think you're exactly right, Cindy. I think that the kitchen is like a microcosm of your life.
Right.
And speaking of that, a lot of people who've read this book have come back and said, I said things about they cried or they were moved or they were touched by this, and various story things, which I love. But they've also said, I've become a better cook.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about fancy techniques. It's not about razzle dazzle or, cool, nifty things that they learned how to do it. It's about an appreciation of food and of the process, simple stuff. I mean, my wife and I love to cook, but it's simple stuff. I've gone to Chef Charles's house, and if you go to the book's website, we'll be putting on. We're just in preparation now. We have some videos of Chef and myself in his kitchen cooking some of the dishes in the book.
Right.
And it's what you see in him is not this razzle dazzle fancy stuff, but just how much love there is and appreciation in what he does. So that's something else.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the preparedness, that we take from our past, these skills that he's been honing all his lifetime. And like you said, he's not pompous. He's not like, oh, I'm the best. He's not making you feel like you're inept. It's more of just the basics. And sometimes when we stand in our own greatness of nothing great or superior to others, but in our own excellence, that we create masterpieces. And whether it's in art or culinary or literary or being the best listener, we all have our own gifts, and stepping into our own greatness is really a beautiful example of how this book can be utilized for any reader.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's great. I appreciate that, because that's the intention.
Well, and you have so many talents. I mean, you're musically, you're literary. I mean, you have so many beautiful talents, and you're touching the world in many different ways. So it's just a real blessing to see that greatness.
I sometimes describe my life and my career a little bit like a pinball machine, because I have kind of going bing, 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 bing.
Where is it taking me next?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I know, but I started out in life as a cellist, a concert cellist, and composer. I was an award-winning composer. I say that not out of bragging as much as, but when I was 13 years old, I won an award. So I was out of the gate. I was a composer. That was my deal. But then I got interested in nutrition, and I got involved in natural foods, and I was in that world. And then I got involved in education. I started a high school, and I was in that world. And then I got involved in business, and I was in sales, and I was in that world. And then I eventually ended up being a writer. And I think that when I am in my 70s, I'm already planning this. I'll go back to composing, what I was doing when I was.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So
meanwhile, I'm writing books.
That's great. Well, you're on a roll. That's amazing. That's amazing how many books you've written. I want to really jump back into the difference between excellence and greatness. So excellence is not greatness, you say. Greatness is excellence plus honor. Can you define that more for us?
Sure. Yeah, because it's funny that emerged. When you read the book and you see these 7 principles, and there's a list of them in the back, and on the website you can download a little business card, size printout of the 7 rules that carry in your pocket, like
nice.
The chef does in the story. And you'd think that those rules must have been worked out before we wrote the book, and they weren't. I mean, that's something that evolved in the process of the book. I knew there'd be rules. I didn't know what they all were going to be. And that's the 7th rule you just brought up, the last rule. And I thought a lot about that, because I've always written about excellence. One of my New York Times books was the memoir of a Navy SEAL sniper. Now, the Navy SEAL sniper is like the best of the best of the best of the best in the military.
Right.
And that whole book was a big book. We got to the very end of the book, and it boiled down, the last 2 pages kind of crystallized the message of the whole book, and it boiled down to 2 words: excellence matters. I mean, in a way, that's what my Navy SEAL friend and I connected on, is this idea of excellence. Look at that. I've always been a fanatic about excellence, whether it was in music or composition or layout and design or whatever. But the Olympics is all about excellence.
Right.
But to give you an illustration, when I was a kid, I played in the chamber ensemble. And we were doing a Brahms piece one semester, Brahms F minor piano quintet, and string quartet plus piano. Our pianist was gorgeous, just beautiful. So this kid from Korea, he was amazing, and he played piano like it was eating a peach. I mean, just delicious. And our first violinist was this kid from Hungary who'd just come over. And when he was a magician, he was a virtuoso. And when he would play, it was like listening to a wooden post. Nothing. He could play every note. It was dazzling, but you felt nothing because there was no feeling in it. He was a sweet kid, but it didn't reach his fingers. So here's what he had. He had excellence,
right,
but not greatness. It's a question of soul. It's a question of intent. And so this is the kind of the lesson that the chef holds out for last for the kid. I told you I'd tell you about this picture, and this is an example of this principle. So here's the story. This is a recipe from my wife, by the way. This is my wife's recipe, oat blueberry pancakes. The recipe's in the back of the book. It's delicious. Got to try it.
I love it.
It's gluten-free. It's fantastic. But a friend of mine, a watercolor artist in Maine, did this picture just for the book. The story is this. Owen remembers this scene at one point in chapter 2. He's thinking about his dad who's gone. And he remembers back 6 years when he was a boy of 8. One morning he came downstairs, Saturday morning, and he hears something in the kitchen. He comes down. His father's cooking blueberry pancakes for his mom, breakfast in bed. And this is like their Saturday morning tradition. So that particular Saturday is watching his dad cook these blueberry pancakes, and he gets in his head to ask, like, what makes them so good? And he says, what makes your pancakes taste so amazing? Is it the blueberries, the fresh blueberries? His father says, nope, they're great, but that's not the secret ingredient. He says, is it the oat flour ground fresh at the store? His father goes, no, that's not the secret ingredient. And he goes, is it the honey? Is it the maple syrup? Is it the egg? Is it the blah? He goes through them all. And finally his dad gets down his eye level and says, Owen, the secret ingredient isn't anything in the pancakes. The secret ingredient is who you're making them for. Mm-hmm. And that's the illustration on the cover of the book. And that's really the message of the book. That's the answer to your question. Excellent is excellence, but honor that ingredient of who you're serving, why you're doing it, what are you doing it for? That elevates the excellent to greatness. You can have a business that turns a phenomenal profit that ruins the environment, or that doesn't, really improve people's life quality. Well, yeah, maybe you do it. Maybe it's excellent. Maybe you're an excellent arms dealer. Maybe you're an excellent whatever. But excellence alone is only proficiency. It doesn't mean you're making the world a better place. It means you're making your niche better, excellenter in delivery. But what's the impact? What's the result in people's lives? And so impact is another word, in a sense, for what we're doing. It is.
And I also think that the chef, the creator, the person who was making the blueberry pancakes made it with love. It was passion. It was making it for someone else, but there was love and passion in it. And that's part of the ingredients. And I think when anyone does any task, whether even it's just dishwasher, emptying your dishwasher or loading it, if you do it with a sense of pride and honor and, hey, I'm so fortunate I can do my dishes and have them done electronically and see the glory in that, that's an amazing thing. So experiencing life from that point of view is just totally transforms how you live your life and experience it.
Quick story. This is the other side. Something I heard from the late Dr. Spencer Johnson, who's the co-author of The 1 Minute Manager, who's also the author of Who Moved My Cheese. Amazing man. He just passed away a few months ago. But he told me once that he was on the phone with a friend of his who was a best-selling author. Won't mention the man's name, but mega best-selling author. And Spencer said he talked with the guy for a few minutes, and then the guy said, Spencer, I got to go. I got to get back. He's on a deadline. I'm on a deadline. My publisher's after me. I got to go finish that damn book. And Spencer said he hung up and told his wife, that book will not do well.
Right.
I knew it from the tone of his voice that he had to finish that damn book. And he said that book is not going to reach people at the heart level, and it's not going to be a bestseller. And it wasn't. It didn't do well because it's just exactly the way your first question, Cindy. It's everything you cook reveals everything you are. Well, that's because it's a container for
It's
you.
what you put into it. It's the love, the energy, the excitement, and what
Yes.
you see and how is it going to nourish
Right.
the audience that you're serving it to, and whatever that ingredient is that you're making, how is that being presented to the world? And you got to believe in it. You got to know it tastes, it serves, it nourishes, it regenerates. It's
And whether you
all of
cook
it.
food or you write books or you sell cars, it's all the same thing
Yeah,
because you're delivering something to people. It's the
yeah,
exact same thing. It's the you that's the same. Books,
right.
cars, meals, they may be different vehicles, different commodities, but it's the communication, it's the you that's the same.
Yeah, I love it. And you can go on to the presentation of your delectable thing that you're going to present. I mean, it's just this great. You could talk about so many different aspects. So this has been great. So what is one little message you want to leave for people who should read this book? It could be a young adult. It could be any adult. I mean, I've enjoyed it myself. So, I mean, who do you see as your main audience, and how can they find your book?
Well, okay, two good questions. I'll take them in order. In terms of who should read the book, I mean, we specifically wrote it for people who, love personal growth and personal development, and B, love food. So if you fit those two categories, or even just one, you should read this book. But I'll also say this. The book is about the boy. It's about this journey from loss to finding himself. But viewed from the other side, it's also about the chef. It's also a mentor's journey. And so it's also, in its own way, it's also a book about mentoring and watching the way this chef treats this fragile boy was really a joy for me in the writing of it. And so I think anybody who's interested in mentoring, anybody who has any kind of mentoring role, leading, teaching, coaching, what have you, I think the book has value for that reader too.
Right. And that
So,
means it's also valuable for parents. You're
yeah,
trying to grow your children, raise them as independent, loving, caring, giving
yeah,
children. And so this is a great way to even look at the things that you do together. How do you create greatness together through each
yeah.
other, but standing alone on each other's own platforms?
I see it more as a book for parents than
Yeah.
as a book for 14-year-olds. I
Yeah.
never thought of it as a YA book, so I think you're exactly right. You asked where to get it. Okay, so two answers to that.
Yeah.
First of all, wherever you get books. I mean, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, iTunes, Kobo, blah, blah, blah. It's everywhere. So it's certainly there on Amazon. It's out in hardcover, ebook, and audiobook. I did the whole audiobook myself. It was the first time I've ever read an entire book for
Oh,
audio.
wow.
That was an experience. It was a lot of fun.
I bet.
So that's there. But also the book has its own website. And I mention that only because you can't buy the book on the website, but it has links to all the places where you buy it. But it also has a whole bunch of extras. It has a discussion guide about the book and that card I mentioned, and a full color poster of all the rules and principles, and a bunch of interviews with me and Charles, and a whole lot more. So I'm going to mention that site, which is theingredientsofgreatness.com.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been amazing. Do you want to leave us with any last minute, how you bake and what you deliver and what time in this? Do you have any additional guidance?
I would just say that, there's a moment when the chef is taking a walk with the boys, just had a rough time, and the chef is taking a walk with him outside and talking through the rough time. And he basically, he's talking to the boy about the fact that you make a difference. Even, it's that you are like the pinch of salt on the watermelon, or like the dash of thyme in the stew. That you, even if the difference you make in the world around you seems to be inconsequential and insignificant, it can actually transform that world around you. So people have asked, what's the one thing you hope we get from reading this book? I would say the thing I hope people get from reading this book is to have an appreciation of the impact that you make on the people around you, even when you don't realize it, even when you're not aware of it.
I love that. It's so profound, and it really is very inspiring to me in my work that I'm doing. So we all have to realize that we are powerful beyond measure. We have our own greatness, and that we are an impact and can be an impact, not only in how we experience life, but the lives of others. So Thank you so very much. This has been absolutely fabulous, and I encourage everyone to go out there and purchase the recipe. It's a great holiday gift. Get one for yourself and someone else. And thank you, John, for this time together, and I'm looking forward to seeing those video clips with you and the chef in his home. So thank you very much. Let me know when those are available.
All right. Thanks so much, Cindy. I love it. Appreciate the
Okay.
conversation.
Take care. Well, this is Cynthia Mazzaferro at Powerful Beyond Measure, and you can reach me at my website, cynthiamazzaferro.com. So thank you all. Have a happy holiday, and we'll see you again next week.